On October 22nd, the noted Harvard University scholar Henry Louis Gates Jr. launches a six-part series on PBS, The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, exploring how people forged their own history, culture, and society against tremendous odds. Now, New Mexico's history often fails to mention our vibrant African American community, so I sat down with local experts to cast more light on their many contributions to the evolution of this state. Joining us to talk about African Americans in New Mexico is George Jeter. He's president and historian of the NAACP's Santa Fe branch. Our friend Rita Powdrell, owner of Powdrell's Barbecue. She also heads the executive committee of the African American Museum and Cultural Center of New Mexico. And she is the co-creator, along with our other guest, Brenda Dabney, of the exhibit New Mexico's African American Legacy, Visible, Vital, and Valuable. This exhibit has been traveling the state for several years, educating people about the group that is often left out of the cultural description of New Mexico, and that would be us, African Americans. Let me start with you, Rita. Good to see you, by the way. It's been a while.
Thank you.
Do me a favor, tell me about the exhibit and what you wanted to accomplish with Visible, Vital, and Valuable. What was the goal when you guys put together the exhibit?
Well, the exhibit is now part of the African American Museum and Cultural Center initiative, which started in 2002. And basically our purpose is we want to research the history of African Americans in the state, we want to archive it, and then we just want to exhibit it throughout the state because people just aren't aware of the history of African Americans in New Mexico, and it's a long, illustrious history of maintaining a sovereign definition in the face of oppression and providing sanctuary for our offspring so that they feel valued, they know excellence, and they survive and move forward with their dreams and goals. And they're not affected by the negative definition that comes from the outside.
I like your use of the term sovereign definition.
Yes.
And Brenda, that's an interesting way to use that word because what Rita's getting to, of course you know this, is if you don't do it for yourself, someone else is going to define you.
Yes.
Right? It's just that simple in life. And so when you were putting this together, what were some of the aspects of our coming to New Mexico you wanted to highlight?
We had five aspects of it. First of all, we talked about the early original families and why they came and what they did when they got here. So that led us into entrepreneurship. And then we looked at the churches. And we had one time grouped them together, but we found that wasn't a good idea. So we separated churches from social organizations. So it's what they came here, they found something to live off of, and they had their sanctuary of church, and then they had their social and some political organizations as well. And then we looked at patterns of integration and segregation in New Mexico.
Interesting. Those are five big subjects. Any one of them could have been its own exhibit.
We
That's amazing.
discovered that.
Right. I can imagine. George, good to see you. Thanks for coming down from Santa Fe. You know, it's interesting it would surprise most folks here who are not African American that there are African Americans that have had a foothold in northern New Mexico for quite a period of time. We tend to think of us being southern New Mexico as our point of entry and where we've made our stand, so to speak. But talk about that, about northern New Mexico.
Yes, well, my family, my wife and I came to Santa Fe about 7 years ago, and one of the questions was, where are all the black folk? And so we joined the Santa Fe branch of the NAACP, which would be our point of entry into the African American community. And what I noticed was that there is a rich history there. In Santa Fe, and it's included in the newspaper clippings of the membership. And so my first thing with the branch was, let me be the historian. Let me gather all the newspaper clippings, the obituaries, and things like that, so that I can learn about the African American community as it exists in Santa Fe, and also to bring it to light and bring it to the community at large to say that there is an African influence in Santa Fe. And that's how I got started with that.
That's interesting. You know, Brenda, it's interesting. Your family would be one of those families, the Dabneys, that you mentioned, some of those original families.
Wasn't the Dabneys? That's my
Okay.
husband's name, but it was my great grandfather. He came here as a Buffalo soldier, and his name was John Collins.
Ah, gotcha. Sorry.
And that's okay. And he came here as in the military.
Right.
And one of the jobs of the Buffalo Soldiers was to protect the men who were laying the track from Topeka, Kansas, going to California, and from whoever it was that was going to stop to impede them. That was one of their jobs. Another job he had was as an Indian scout because he spoke several Indian dialects. And then he also was sent up here to Albuquerque to move the course, to work with the Corps of Engineers, to move the course of the river. The river's natural bed runs between 1st and 2nd Street. And years ago, whenever we had a large rainfall, the water would just pour down those two streets.
Sure.
You know, we've since have corrected that, but they moved it to where its present bed is. And while he was here, he kind of liked Albuquerque. He was living in Silver City, and so when he was discharged from the military, he sent for his wife, Melissa, who was in New York, and brought her out here. And she, surprisingly, the railroad stopped in Topeka, and she had to ride stagecoach to meet him.
Sure.
But anyway, he started homesteading here, and this is in the late 1800s.
Yeah. Was homesteading a big part of our toehold here initially? Was homesteading part of that process?
I think so. Some of the families that we talked to, yes, they had, and they had quite a bit of tract of land, and they worked it. You know, we were talking to other families that came out. Yes, they did have they were homesteading.
Interesting. You know, Rita, I can remember years ago sitting down with your husband Joe talking about entrepreneurship here in African Americans in time. There was a great picture he showed me. I think it was about 3rd and Gold downtown, speaking of 3rd Street. I believe there was an African American messenger service that was the biggest in Albuquerque during the 19th. It was amazing.
Yes.
It was absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Talk about that, our entrepreneurship over time and how that's
Well, I
worked.
think
Yeah.
one of the fascinating things about the exhibit, because we have been traveling the state with Santa Fe, Las Vegas, New Mexico, Las Cruces, and then of course Albuquerque, and the biggest thing you find is that coming into this new land that had job ceilings and things that people were trying to get away from, what happened within the African American community was our own sovereign definition and entrepreneurship. So a lot of businesses started within the African American community, from Utotem grocery store down in Las Cruces, and then you come here and you had boarding houses, you had hotels, because African Americans could not lodge where everybody lodged.
Sure.
So it started a boarding house, industry, and your hotel industry, and of course we needed barbers and we needed beauticians, and we set up, the churches became. We had construction companies, and like you said, Bryant Delivery Service, which had a building which housed other things within it, and you had one of the first doctors who came to Albuquerque resided in a building that was owned by Bryant Delivery Service. And then you had the African American newspapers, which was entrepreneurial because we needed to know.
Sure.
We needed to know what was happening, and we needed to know between communities and what to fight. So when segregation, when the state decided to segregate, one of the ways we found out was through, the African American newspapers, and then and entrepreneurial things in areas that other people were coming to New Mexico for, like the tuberculosis. So one of the early dentists had a tuberculosis clinic, Booker T. Washington, clinic, and the women had catering. And they had a catering service, and we used all of these things to define ourselves and our community and to give our children hope, because a lot of the people who started entrepreneurial endeavors did so because they were being blocked in the area they were passionate about. So a lot of people came here college educated to be school teachers. and they could not be school teachers. So they became porters, and they became postal carriers, and on the trains, and they became janitors. But the other thing they did was they started businesses that gave them value within our community. So when I come into this community, I have another definition that gives me value and makes me vital and gives my children the hope that they don't need to be cynical. You need to keep going. You need to still, you need to not let these ceilings stop you.
That's right.
And so when you look at the children of these early settlers, they accomplished amazing, amazing things educationally.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say that, because I'm thinking to that picture and others. In the brothers and sisters that are in the picture, it was just like blam. You know what I mean? Like, this is who I am. I run this business. I'm important to this community. It just, the pride of it was just so impactful. But challenges, George, along the way. I've talked to a lot of folks here who can't even, they just don't believe there was any such thing as segregation in New Mexico. It didn't happen here. It just never happened.
Well,
it's interesting, isn't it?
You're right, and that's not true. But
Right.
let me point out something to the entrepreneurship aspect. At the branch this month, we had a author who wrote a book about a gentleman named Bud Fowler. Now, Bud Fowler was a black professional baseball player, and he actually integrated baseball maybe 60 years before Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
And what's key to Bud Fowler and New Mexico is that Bud Fowler traveled from New York, and he went through the Midwest, and he ended up in Santa Fe in the late 1800s. And at that time, Santa Fe had a professional baseball team, and they won, if you will, the World Series at that time. And it's fascinating that these characters do come into the area, into New Mexico, into Santa Fe, into Albuquerque, and establish a legacy that our students today need to learn about.
Right.
So there's this man, Jeff Lang. He wrote this wonderful book, and he's trying to get this character, Bud Fowler, into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Yeah, ironically, Bud Fowler was out of New York State, and he lived blocks away from Cooperstown.
Oh, no kidding.
Where the Hall of Fame is. Yeah. But his story reaches Santa Fe, and it reaches New Mexico. And as I'm learning, there are other characters that have been here, even as recent as Robert Lawrence, the celebrated Tuskegee Airman.
Sure.
He established roots in his later years in Santa Fe, and he became a living legend. There's many other characters that are in our history.
Yeah.
In Santa Fe, we have a cemetery, the Fairview Cemetery, and interred there are some important African American families. The Slaughters and the Roberts are in there, and they have rich stories of entrepreneurship, establishing businesses and an African American identity in Santa Fe and Albuquerque and New Mexico at large. So we are here.
Yeah.
We have experienced the segregation and the racism like any other place in the country, more so in the southern half of the state than the northern half of the state. And mainly the difference is the numbers of African Americans who traveled through the state.
Right.
As a migration happened from the south, Mississippi, Alabama, through Texas, that migratory pattern came mostly through the southern half of the state.
Interesting.
Few people did go to the northern part of the state. So yes, we are here. We have been here. That history needs to be exposed. And
It's interesting. Go ahead, Brenda.
I'd like to say that shows you that the strength of the people that came, because we were willing to jump over the barriers and forge ahead, because we had this strength. We knew that we're out here and we are going to make this our home.
That's right.
And we can, I think that strength is something that we need to pass on to our children too, because knowing that we have been in places that we have just made something out of nothing, and we can see where we can go and make. That's why some of those service jobs became available, because they said, you know, there's a need here. I think I can fill this need, and I think that's a strength that we, of course, need to pass on to our children.
It's such a rich topic. I mean, there's just so much we can handle in 15 minutes. I'd love to sit down with you all again and talk about this. The sports stuff is fascinating. You know, again, a project your husband was working on a couple of years ago, but the amount of athletes that have gone on to be Olympic medal winners from this state that nobody knows about. It's amazing.
Oh, yes.
We'll cover that. Thank you so much for coming in. Brenda, George, and Rita, thank you. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, the 6-part series, The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, starts October 22nd, at 7 p.m. right here on New Mexico PBS.